The day my fiancée asked for time, I gave it to her and used every minute to erase her from the life she thought was guaranteed. My name is Noah Grant. I'm 34, a civil engineer who counts things most people never see. Tolerances, hairline cracks, wind load on a pedestrian bridge no one will think about until it sways. I work out of Riverton, a mid-sized city that stares at a river the color of hammered steel and pretends it's ocean. 12 years on the job has trained me to wait, measure, and speak only after the math is sure. That kind of patience is a habit. So is writing everything down. I met Lila Moreno at a friend's birthday dinner 5 summers ago. She introduced herself like she knew I'd remember the name. Marketing coordinator by title, strategist in practice. She had the kind of laugh that makes other conversations tilt toward it. Quick eyes. Always scanning, choosing. She talked with her hands, painting her plans in the air. I liked how clear she was about wanting more than the job she had. I liked that she didn't pretend. She asked what infrastructural failure fascinated me most, and when I said the Tacoma Narrows Bridge, she said, "The one that danced itself to death?" and smiled like she'd just been given permission to be interested in the world. 8 months after that, she moved into my house. It wasn't much then, but it was mine. A 3-bedroom in a neighborhood that old-timers still called Quarry Hill because decades ago trucks brought stone down that street and scuffed the curbs. I'd bought it 2 years before Lila, with my down payment, my inspection, my ugly couch that I swore was temporary, and then kept for 3 winters. I never put her name on the deed. Not out of stinginess, out of sequence. Property first, people later. It was my house when I signed. It became our home when she hung lights and laughed in the kitchen and lined the bookshelf with plants that tilted toward morning. Last December, the city hung paper lanterns all along the river path for the winter lights walk. I proposed under a bridge I'd helped redesign, a small span that glows softly at night as if it's breathing. I had a ring in my pocket I'd paid for over 4 months, nothing flashy, just clean lines and a stone that caught light honestly. Lila cried and said yes and took a picture of our hands before she called her mother. She had the date in mind before the ring warmed to her finger. We booked a venue. We talked menus and colors and band versus DJ. I thought it felt like building a thing together. She thought it felt like ascending, like she was stepping onto the next landing of a staircase she'd promised herself she'd climb. I didn't notice the slippage at first. That's the trouble with hairline cracks. You don't see them until the structure groans. Lila always liked being watched a little. She could hold a room like a lantern. Near the end, the lantern felt hungry. She took her phone everywhere, face down, as if there were a glare. She started going for drinks with the team 3 nights in a row while their group chat showed someone posting a puzzle photo from home. She'd say she was at Jenna's. Jenna's husband would upload a photo of them streaming a show. She came home twice with a cologne on her sleeve that didn't smell like mine or like anything I'd wear by accident. Questions formed, small and discreet as rebar ends waiting for concrete. I didn't ask them out loud. I counted them and kept them and waited for the beam to tell me what it could hold. She knocked on my office door on a Saturday afternoon in March. I remember the date because I had a stack of geotech reports on my desk and a headache behind my right eye. She stood there holding the doorframe like it was the only thing that would keep her from drifting. "Noah, we need to talk." I closed my laptop without saving. "All right." She sat in the blue armchair and stared at the fern on the windowsill. I need time. To think. About everything. About us. About me. How much time? I don't know. A few weeks. Maybe a month. And during this thinking, I asked carefully, "Do you plan to be alone?" She looked at me, then away, too fast. "Yes. I need space." It was a lie built out of words that fit together. Poorly made, but standing. I nodded like a man who accepts the load limits posted on a bridge. "Okay. Noah, I'm not breaking up with you." The words came quick, like she'd rehearsed them. "I love you. I just need to understand what I feel." "Okay," I said again, and because I've learned that silence is a lever, I used it. She packed that night. 2 suitcases. A bag with the ring box at the bottom and the ring on her finger. She hugged me at the door like she was stepping onto an airplane and wanted to arrive already. I carried her bags to her car, kissed her hair, and watched taillights leave. I sat on the couch, in the spot where we'd watched 100 mediocre movies because being next to someone you like makes bad scripts more bearable, and I smiled. Not because I wanted her gone. Because the math had finally balanced. The equation wrote itself in my head without me forcing it. Observed changes plus weak cover story plus sudden need for independent reflection equals an answer I didn't want, given to me all the same. I don't like to be wrong, but I love being right when the truth is ugly. It means I'm not crazy. The first 3 days were quiet in a way I'd forgotten quiet could be. No Spotify from the shower. No heel clicks down the hall. No question called from another room. I missed the sounds and I didn't. The silence felt like oxygen. By Wednesday, I was ready to collect data. Lila left the house with the iPad we used for recipes. The living room's second iPad, the one we used for streaming, stayed on the shelf. It was still logged into her accounts because convenience always beats caution when the house feels safe. I turned off Wi-Fi, shot a photo of the settings as they were, then went online in airplane mode. No trace. Instagram looked normal at first. Work boomerangs. Gym mirror. Stories with polls that said, hey. I scrolled back a month and paused. A photo at a coffee shop downtown I didn't recognize. The shot was oddly framed, as if someone had been on the left and then not. Reflections in glass betray more than faces think to hide. A shoulder in the window belonged to a man. I went to her Facebook, which she used only when she needed older relatives to clap. A name repeated itself under her posts, Adrian Kwan. He'd liked with a frequency that looked like heartbeat. He'd commented, so proud of you, under a photo of her in a dress she didn't buy for me. Adrian was the ex she'd mentioned the first winter we were together. The one who forgot her birthday and remembered a co-worker's after hours. The one who moved cities without telling her until his mail forwarded. The one who taught her boundaries. People use the words that help them sleep. I told myself I might be making connections where none existed. I told myself to wait for a fact that could be printed and handed to someone without apology. On Friday, my best friend called from a number he only uses when he is trying to decide whether to drop a grenade. Noah, you okay? Define okay. I saw Lila on Maple Row about an hour ago. She was with a guy, short hair, buttoned down, looked like he'd live in startups. They were not arguing. You take a picture? I asked without heat. He winced audibly. I did because I'm a bad person who loves you. The message came through while we were still on the phone. There she was, hand on the forearm of a man I didn't know personally, but knew by name. The tilt of her head didn't belong to strangers. The angle of his body belonged to someone who thought time was on his side. Thanks, I said. I owe you lunch and immunity. You okay? He asked again, smaller. Better, I said, and meant it. I do not perform. I prepare. Step 1 was documentation. Screenshots, printouts, dates written in the corner with a ballpoint pen because ink still feels like proof in a world where pixels are too easy to move. I printed the photo my friend sent and put it in a folder with a title I wouldn't be embarrassed to read in court if it came to that. Timeline. Step 2 was a lawyer. I called Colin Ward, who has a voice like cardboard but does not miss a comma. Date of purchase? He asked. 2 years before I met her. Name on the deed? Mine. You've been cohabiting how long? 5 years. There is no common law marriage recognized in your county unless you have filed a declaration, he said. Did you? No. Then she has no claim to your property in a breakup scenario. I suggest you maintain clear records of purchases for personal property as well. Do not change locks yet. Could be construed as hostile if she left by agreement and intends to return for belongings. When you move, do it quickly and with inventory. Thank you. I'm sorry, he added, surprising us both. Step 3 was valuation. Lila and I had furnished a life in 5 years. A bed. A television bought during a sale because I like numbers even when they pretend to be slashed. A dining table I built with my hands from plans I found online and modified because the joists looked weak on paper. A couch that people complimented because Lila picked it and because it was comfortable. She chose most of the aesthetics. I paid for most of the items. Not because she asked. Because I could. I save receipts like I save bridge inspection photos, forever. I pulled a plastic file bin off the shelf in my office and spread proof across the table until the wood looked like a ledger. Lila texted Monday night. How are you? Hope you're okay. I'm still thinking. Kisses. 5 years and a ring, and I got kisses like an international flight check-in. I responded in the tone you use with a coworker who asked if the meeting time still works. Doing all right. Take what time you need. Her friend Jenna messaged me midweek from a private account. She probably forgot she'd added me on years ago. I can't keep lying to you. Lila isn't here. She hasn't stayed one night. I tried to tell her to be honest. I'm sorry. Thank you for telling me, I wrote back. You don't owe me more. I stared at the ceiling until the plaster looked like a map. Then I called a realtor. 3 years back, a woman named Priya Nanda walked me through the house I eventually signed for. She stood in the kitchen and asked, "What feels right?" in a way that made me tell the truth. I called her now. "Can you sell my house fast?" "How fast is fast?" 2 weeks to secure a buyer. 3 to close. She whistled. "That's not selling. That's a controlled fire. I can bring investors and young families who will love what you did with the North Room. You sure you want to leave?" "Yes," I said. "The foundation is fine. The walls have rot." We listed at a price that would move it, 15 under market, still 30 above what I'd paid. The sign went up on a Thursday morning while the sun made the lawn look like something I'd remember, and then not. On Saturday, a couple came to the door holding hands like they were still practicing how to fit. He fought wildland fires in summer and did gear inspections in winter. She taught second grade and said, "My kids," in a way that made me like her. They stood in the kitchen and looked at the sink like it would tell them if the house wanted them. And the sink did. They offered Sunday afternoon. We accepted Sunday night. Priya called me Monday screaming into a pillow. Cash equivalent. Appraisal waiver. 2-week close. I don't know what you did to Karma, but she owes you. I made lists like I was back on a job site. Separate. Pack. Donate. Shred. I wrote everything I could prove I paid for into one column. Everything she'd bought into another and labeled it storage. The overlap went into a third. Joint. Value/utility. I made the hard calls without apology. The keepsake stayed because you can tear a life down without being cruel. The plants went to my mother because they liked her more. The drawings Lila had tacked to the office corkboard came down and went into a folder marked Lila, Misk. On Thursday, the ex knocked. He showed up in a black sedan that people buy when they want the world to know they care about speed and the planet. He wore a shirt that fit and a watch that wanted attention. He extended his hand and introduced himself like we were about to do a handoff of a project in a conference room. "You must be Noah. I'm Adrian. I'm a friend of Lila's." "Friend," I said and tipped my head. "Can we talk? Man to man." I let him in because I was curious what self-story he told and because I wanted to hear exactly how far the lie had traveled. He looked around with approval, like people do when they need to pretend they are objective. "Nice place. Lila always said you two built something beautiful." "We did," I said. "I bought the materials. She picked paint." He chuckled, then realized he shouldn't. "Look, this is awkward. We didn't plan any of it. I came back to town. We bumped into each other. It brought up feelings. We're not trying to hurt you. She just needs time. Space. Maybe you two could reach an understanding." "An understanding," I repeated, such as I move out of the way of the emotional delivery truck and wave as it crushes 5 years. He spread his hands in a move they teach at workshops. "We don't want drama." "Of course," I said. I walked to the window, looked at the for sale sign like it was an old friend, and kept my tone even. "Does Lila know you're here?" He blinked. "I thought it would be better if I spoke to you first. Did she tell you she was staying with a friend while she reflected?" He stared at the bookshelf. The Meridian has a very nice executive suite," I said. "I've never stayed there. I hear the spa is good." He swallowed. "How did you?" "Listen," I said. "You're not the first man to remember a woman when she has made a life that looks steady. You won't be the last. You did what you wanted. So did she. That's fine. Choice reveals people. For your sake, I hope you're both telling each other the truth now. It'll be a short runway if you don't." He stood. I didn't come to fight. I didn't either. He hovered in the doorway like he wanted to find a sentence that turned this into something noble. None existed. He left. The next morning, Lila texted. "Hey love, I think I'm ready to talk. Can we meet this weekend?" Sunday. 3. Here. I arrived back from the storage unit at 2. The house was empty except for 2 folding beach chairs I'd borrowed from my neighbor because I liked the message and their ridiculousness. The walls showed outlines where frames had been. The floor sounded like a gym. I sat and waited, and in the waiting felt the kind of peace people promise themselves when they say someday. She pulled into the driveway at 2:30 because she is early when she's nervous and late when she wants to control the moment. Her key still turned because I hadn't changed the locks. I wasn't a villain in a play. She stepped into the living room and stopped like a person finding the sea gone. "Noah, what happened?" We're talking, I said, gesturing at the chair across from me. She looked beautiful the way she often did. A blue blouse I'd picked out in a store where the lighting made everything look like a decision you wouldn't regret. She sat slowly. Her eyes ran around the room like a mouse looking for exits. Where are our things? She asked. Your things are in a storage unit on Riverside. 6 months paid. This is the key. I handed her an envelope with a typed inventory paper clipped to it. 3 pages. Item. Description. Photo printed in color. Value estimated. She slid the paper out like she might find a trap under it. And the rest? The rest is either sold with the house, donated, or packed for transport. The house. She lifted her head. What do you mean the house? Lila, I said gently. Where have you been staying for the last 2.5 weeks? At Jenna's, she said, because a lie used once is easier to use twice than a new one is to invent. She told me last week you weren't there. Lila's mouth opened. No words came out. The Meridian has very good blackout curtains, I said. That must have been helpful for reflection. Did your thinking lead to any math? How did you know? Her voice was small like I'd turned the world down. Because I observe, I said. Because I listen. Because your friend has a conscience. Because my friend took a photo on Maple Row. Because your ex came to my door yesterday and suggested we handle this amicably, like we were bargaining over a parking space. Her eyes went wide. Adrian came here? Apparently he didn't tell you. That's not the kind of omission that worries me for your future or anything. She pressed the heels of her hands into her eyes and cried. It didn't look like manipulation. It looked like someone realizing the floor was not there where she had assumed it was. Noah, I'm sorry. I got scared. It wasn't calculated. I felt old feelings and they scared me, and I didn't want to throw everything away if I was wrong. You didn't mind throwing me into a closet while you decided if the dress looked better on someone else, I said, not unkindly. I want to come home. She leaned forward, hands open. I made a mistake. I know it now. Being with him wasn't what I remembered. It was messy. It was shallow. You and I, this is real. I love you. Please. Look around, I said. She did. What do you see? Nothing, she whispered. Exactly. Noah. I sold the house. I said it the way I'd tell her the weather if it mattered. We closed Friday. Keys transfer tomorrow at 9 a.m. I've paid movers for your storage items and mine. I put a deposit down on a place on the coast in Marigold Bay. I leave next week. You sold our house. My house, I corrected softly. Bought 2 years before you. Renovated with my hands. Made into a home with both of us, yes. But mine to sell. I wish it hadn't worked out this way. I wish you'd been who I asked to move with me. You asked for time. I used it. You can't just. Yes, I said. I can. She stood. The kind of panic that makes bargaining look like love ran across her face. I was confused, she said. I didn't want to hurt you. I thought I needed to know if this old thing was still a thing. You needed to know if the grass was greener. It rarely is. It's just painted for the viewing. You're being cruel. No. I shook my head. I'm being clear. There's a difference. She stared at me the way people do when the person across from them refuses to play the game they brought to the table. I wanted to see you happy, I said, even if I wasn't the reason. But you didn't choose honesty. You chose safety. You wanted a break that was actually a tryout. And you meant to come back if you didn't get the part you wanted. She cried again, raw and loud this time. I let her. I'm not immune to pain. I'm not obligated to stop it when I'm not the one causing it. What would you have done? I asked. If he had been everything you wanted? Her mouth worked. She didn't answer. I know, I said. Silence held us both up for a minute. I'm leaving in an hour, I said. You can walk the rooms and pick up anything of yours you see that I missed. The inventory is on that list. The storage key is yours. Leave the house key in the mailbox when you lock up. She stared at the key like it was a relic discovered under sand. You taught me something, I said, and I meant it. When someone asks for time to think about you, they've already decided. They're just looking for a comfortable exit. I'm going to give you what you said you wanted, time. I'm going to use mine. I walked toward the door. She put her hand on my arm without thinking, the way you reach for a railing on stairs in the dark. I paused and turned not because I owed the past a bow, but because leaving without one makes the bones ache later. Noah, she whispered. Please. You're going to be okay, I said. I am too. I left the house we had pretended would be ours until we had children to put in the back room and stood in the driveway, while the river wind did what it always does, moved without caring what I called it. In the mirror, she stood in the doorway holding her own face like it would fall without her hands. I felt sad. I did not feel regret. The next week unspooled like a plan written in a field book. Movers came and took what they were told to take. The couple signed papers and hugged in the empty kitchen and cried in the doorway the way companies in commercials pretend to cry. Priya handed me an envelope and said, "If you ever need to come back, I'll be here. If you never come back, that's also okay." I drove west to Marigold Bay. That's what the town named itself to get tourists, and it worked. It sits with its shoulder against a cliff and pretends to be sleepier than it is. I rented a place above a workshop that fixes boats. The air smells like salt and oil and metal warmed in sun. I opened a consultancy with my name on the door and kept the office sparse because I like space more than I like furniture that tells stories. Work found me because there is always something to fix. People sent emails because they needed someone who could hold a problem without flinching and write a plan without romance. Lila wrote 3 times. The first message was long and begged for a meeting I would have said yes to in a younger year. "I can explain," she wrote. "I made a mistake. I thought I needed to know something I didn't. I know it now. You were my safe place and I used you. I'm sorry. Please answer." I didn't. The second email was angrier and told a story where I was cold, and she was human, and fairness meant restoring what she had risked. "You didn't even try," she wrote. "You just left. Who does that? Who sells a whole life over a few weeks?" People who tidy up after themselves, I thought, and archived the message without answering. The third was short, months later, and read like a last page. "I understand now. I wish you well. Mutual friends told me she and Adrian lasted 6 weeks past my move. I didn't ask why. I think I know. Half of longing is editing. It took me 2 months to stop waking expecting to hear her in the kitchen and 3 to realize I was happier not listening for footsteps that told me nothing. I started running at dawn along the seawall and learned the names of birds because an older man at the end of the pier insisted you should know your neighbors. I built a narrow desk from the old dining table and sanded it until my palms forgot the shape of the life I'd eaten dinner on. I did not buy new cups right away. I drank from one and washed it each night like discipline. I bought 2 plants and spoke to them like they could hear me, because most living things can. A client called from the county and asked if I'd consult on a bridge replacement project where the budget and the chief's patience were both thin. "We need someone who won't panic," she said. "I won't," I said. I made a rule. I wrote it on a sticky note and stuck it on the inside of a cabinet where only I would see it. No half-truths. No almosts. No contingency where the cost is who you are. On a rainy morning, I walked into a hardware store for sandpaper and walked out with plans drawn on the back of the receipt for a better way to store boats in the off-season because the old racks wasted space. The owner offered me coffee from a pot that tasted like ashes and opportunities. "You sound like you're staying," he said. "I am," I said, and was surprised by how good it felt to know I was telling the truth. The best revenge isn't spectacle. It's accuracy. It's leaving with your math balanced. It's making sure the person who treated you like a spare option realizes you were the plan and they threw the plan away. If you're waiting for a scene where I deliver a monologue and the world claps, it doesn't exist. The closest thing I have is an afternoon 3 months later when I carried a box of books into my office and heard the rain begin in a way that made the whole block hush. I put the box down and stood at the window with my hands in my pockets like an old man and watched water make the street honest. No music swelled. No slow motion. Just a steady series of drops moving a world 1 millimeter at a time. Lila taught me something I should have already known. Some structures fail not because the load is too great, but because someone saw a crack and decided to keep dancing on it. The fix is cheap at first. Epoxy, clamp, confession. The fix is a rebuild when pride delays the call. I picked rebuild. I set my levels. I checked plumb. I tightened what held and threw away what didn't. At night, I sat on the little back steps with a mug and listened to foghorns and understood the point of them. Not music, warning. Sound made so other people can adjust their course before they hit something they can't apologize to. Months later, Mateo called and said, "You dating?" "Trying," I said. Slowly. He laughed. "Even in love, you're a spreadsheet." "I like knowing where columns end," I said. And he said, "Good." And we both let the silence sit between us like a porch where you don't have to fill the air. I met someone at a bookstore that sells maps because of course I did. She was buying an atlas and arguing with the owner about whether he should fold the paper bag differently so the edge wouldn't cut the corner. Her name's Mara. She reads the index of a guidebook before the intro. She corrected me gently about a stormwater term I'd dumbed down for a client, and then laughed at my face when I looked impressed. We went for coffee and spoke to each other like people who have had enough of half sentences. I told her about the house on Quarry Hill on our second date because I don't like hiding leaks. She said, "I'm sorry that happened," and then asked what the best change I made afterward was. "I started buying plants I'm afraid I'll kill," I said. "Why?" she asked. "Because being scared to fail is not a good enough reason not to grow something." She squeezed my hand like that answer didn't suck. Later that week, she texted me a photo of a tiny leaf with the caption, "Proof." If you want a moral, I guess it's this: when someone asks for time, listen for the architecture underneath the word. Look for what the structure is bearing and what it's hiding. Some houses catch the light in photographs and still smell like mold when you walk in. Some faces smile while their hands build an exit ramp. People tell the truth all the time. It leaks out of the seams of their stories and runs downhill if you stand still enough to watch. I am not angry anymore. I am grateful. Not to Lila for breaking what we almost built, to myself for not trying to hold up a roof with my back. There's one more thing. The couple who bought the house sent a postcard to the forwarding address the title company put on a sheet. Handwritten. There were 3 photos printed on cheap paper. The kitchen with holiday lights Lila once hung now hung differently. The north room with a rug I would not have chosen and liked anyway. And the backyard with 2 chairs, not the ones I bought. Their own, facing the fence where the neighbor's dog used to bark at leaves. On the back, she wrote, "Thank you for leaving the place better than you found it. We feel it." I looked at the card on my desk, at the curve of the river printed without my hand on it, at the line of my own future I was tracing in pencil, and I thought, that's the point of a life. Leave it better. If someone tries to occupy it on a part-time basis while they look around, ask them to keep moving. There's someone out there who wants to build and not test. When I think of Lila now, I don't see her standing in the empty living room. I see her at that winter lights night, eyes bright, saying yes into cold air. I hope she finds a place where yes means yes without asterisks. I hope she folds the truth into her hands like paper lanterns and lights them before they burn the house down. And me? I'm here, in a town that pretends to be sleepy and isn't, counting the quiet wins a prepared mind earns. Every now and then I run my thumb over the edge of the desk I made from a table where love once ate, and I feel the smoothness that comes from months of sanding what splinters. That's all revenge is at its best, the calm after you clean, the hum of a room that finally fits, the certainty in your chest when someone says, "Do you need time?" And you can answer, "No, I know exactly what I deserve."